What's going on YouTube, it's Jason, and in this video I'm going to be discussing what the best body fat is for building muscle or bulking. Now, as the title suggests in this video, I got this wrong for years. I used to encourage people to cut down first before they bulked, and this was for four main reasons. The first was health. It's obviously healthier to bulk at a lower body fat than it is at a higher body fat. The second was to create a runway. If you're natural, you need to be in a caloric surplus for as long as possible. The leaner that you start in terms of your body fat percentage, the longer you can bulk for. The third reason was down to my experience as a coach. I noticed that when someone started bulking at higher levels of body fat, they were much more likely to get uncomfortable with their body fat level and then request a mini cut. So I wanted to minimize the risk of that happening. And the final reason, and the main reason that I filmed this video, was to address the P ratio. P ratio is the proportion of lean mass that we gain for every unit of body weight change. In a nutshell, there was a study done, and this was called the Forbes model, which essentially overfed people for a period of time. And it found that those who were lean were more likely to gain their weight in muscle than those with a higher body fat percentage. The recommendations were something like those who were leaner would gain 60 to 70% of their weight in lean body mass, compared to 30 to 40% for someone with a higher body fat level. And this led the bodybuilding community to come out with guidelines, and they held the view that if a man was 10 to 15% body fat, they would put on more of their weight in lean mass than someone who was like 20% body fat. With women, you need to add about 8 to 10% to these numbers. Now, I previously held this view as well, and I even mentioned it in a video that I filmed back in 2021, I believe. But there's been some updated research, and I realized that I was wrong. And as I'm a science-based trainer, I am more than happy to take the L and say that I was wrong when new information comes out. For a bit of fun, let's watch back the clip. Excuse the shouting, I was new to YouTube.
Simply put, the more visceral fat a man has, the lower his testosterone levels are likely to be. And the opposite is also true. The lower a man's body fat is, the higher his testosterone levels and growth hormone levels are likely to be. So what does this all mean for muscle building? All things being equal, the leaner person will gain a higher percentage of their mass in muscle, and the person with a higher body fat will gain a higher percentage of their mass in fat.
So yeah, I previously held this view, and I would encourage clients to lean down first so they got to a leaner level of body fat for the four reasons I listed at the start. But Eric Trexler recently came out with a study going into the specifics of the old study and critiquing it, and he found that people gained a similar amount of muscle, in fact maybe even a little bit more, at higher levels of body fat versus lower levels of body fat. And he went a step further and actually scrutinized the original study and found that those who took part in the study were anorexics. These weren't people that were resistance training. And so the response that we saw to the anorexics gaining more lean body mass than those who had a higher body fat level could have been the fact that they were actually in a starved state already and had lost a lot of lean body mass, rather than something to say that anyone who is leaner would gain more muscle. And so in reality, the original study wasn't applicable to bodybuilders. What we needed to do was test what happens to resistance trained individuals, and that's what Eric Trexler did, and actually found, as I said, that those with slightly higher body fat percentages did actually gain slightly more lean body mass. So I was wrong, and I did put too much weight on the P ratio study, but it was based on the information that we had available at the time. Have I changed my position though? The answer is no, and that's because the three reasons that I led with at the start, it's healthier to bulk at lower levels of body fat, it creates more of a runway so that somebody can stay in a surplus for longer, and also a person is less likely to get uncomfortable with their body fat level when they are leaner. My point still stands, and so I would still recommend someone to get leaner before they start to bulk, but not for the reasons that their gains would be negatively affected by being at a higher level of body fat. And so that's what Eric Trexler's paper looked to do. It didn't say that the original study was rubbish. It didn't say that there is absolutely no way that somebody who's leaner has a favorable hormonal environment for building muscle. What he looked to do was say, was the person with a higher body fat percentage negatively impacted? And the answer is no. And so on the back of that, if we were to look at specific numbers, I would have told someone that was like 16 or 17% body fat to lean down first. I would no longer do that, but I would recommend that people try and keep their bulk under 20% body fat, because let's be real, on a bulk you are going to gain some body fat. We cannot avoid that. Obviously, how much body fat you gain depends on your programming and your nutrition, but you're going to gain some body fat, so I always leave room for like anywhere from 2 to 5% body fat depending on the person. If you're starting your bulk at like 25% body fat, you're going to finish at 30%, and 30% body fat will begin to negatively affect your body and could negatively affect your training at some point. So we do need to be sensible. I do believe that as an industry, we do have a massive body dysmorphia problem. People start to think they're fat or skinny fat, that's the new kind of term on the block, when they're like 15%. Like, there are guys that genuinely inquire with me and would say, Jason, I'm skinny fat, what should I do? They send me a photo and these guys are like 14% body fat, and sometimes they are under the age of 18. When I was 18, all I was concerned about was building muscle. Obviously, as I got closer to my genetic potential and I got more advanced, deeper into my training journey, I now try and stay leaner. But if you don't have much muscle mass, or you haven't really built your base or a frame, why on earth are you trying to stay shredded? Go out and chase those gains. So yeah, don't get caught up in this permanent state of cutting because you're trying to stay shredded. People go through this cycle. They will start at a high level of body fat. They will try and bulk. 4 weeks in, they'll be like, oh my gosh, my stomach has got bigger. They will cut down and then they'll start again, and they don't really get anywhere. They end up spinning their wheels, not really making much progress on their strength or their muscle mass. I would advise to try and create that runway and limit the risk that you're going to get uncomfortable with your bulk. So try and get down to as lean as you physically can. I mentioned in previous videos about body fat settling points. Some people will feel more comfortable at 10, 12 or 15% body fat, or even 17% body fat. Pick the lowest point that you feel comfortable at, that your hormones are healthy at, and that you feel strong at, and bulk from there. I can't stress this enough. As a natural, your gains are made by staying in a caloric surplus for as long as possible. You can't rush it just by overfeeding once you get past your first year of training. They are slow and painful and hard to come by. And so you need to stay in a surplus for as long as you possibly can. The leaner you are, the more runway you have, and the more comfortable you will inevitably feel. That doesn't mean we should get wrapped up in the whole body dysmorphia thing, trying to bulk from 8% to 10% body fat. It makes no sense. You're going to be weak and have a negative hormone environment for most of us. So yeah, in conclusion, I would recommend starting your bulk somewhere between 10 and 20% body fat, wherever you feel strong, but also as lean as you can naturally go based on your body fat settling point. I wouldn't recommend getting much higher than this, just because the goal of lifting is partly aesthetics. You don't want your body fat getting out of control. Keep it in check. If you keep it somewhere in the teens, and that way when you gain body fat, which you inevitably will on a bulk, it won't get out of hand. So yeah, I'm always humble enough to admit I'm wrong when updated research becomes available. Hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Don't forget to like it if you did. Comment below for the algorithm. Let me know your opinion on bulking. Do you still follow P ratio? Do you not? Please subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.